Thank you, Secretary Johnson. We'll now proceed under the 5-minute rule with questions, and I'll begin by recognizing myself. Secretary Johnson, I appreciate the President's recognition of the importance of doing immigration reform. I and I think most members of Congress believe we need to do immigration reform as well. But it needs to be recognized by the President and by you and others in the administration that when the President says that he's going to set a time limit and then consider taking actions himself, which many of us read to be the President again repeating, I have a pen and a cell phone, and if you don't act, I will, that makes doing immigration reform harder, not easier, because those who may like what the President decides to do administratively have less reason to negotiate the hard decisions to be made about how to enforce our immigration laws in the future. And those who do not agree with the President's position on immigration reform say, why should we negotiate if we can't trust the President to enforce the laws as they exist? So I just expressed to you my ongoing concern that the President is faithful to the process when he works with the Congress and suggests that he wants to accomplish immigration reform, but he hurts the efforts in the Congress when he says, if you don't do it, and the suggestion is further, if you don't do it my way, I'll act unilaterally, when many of us believe the United States Constitution does not give him the authority to do that. But let me turn my questions to another subject, and that is there are now 858,779 non-detained aliens with final orders of removal who have not been removed. The vast majority of these aliens have simply absconded and become fugitives in the U.S. It is to me crystal clear. Is it to you that if we do not detain aliens in removal proceedings, many will simply become fugitives and not be required to leave the country?
Chairman, you are correct that there are a large number of undocumented in the country who are fugitives who have absconded after final orders of removal. I've looked at the same numbers. One of the things that
Let me get into the details here. It's recently been revealed that in 2013, DHS released from detention over 36,000 criminal aliens in removal proceedings or after they had been ordered removed. Aliens with convictions ranging from homicide to sexual assault to kidnapping to aggravated assault to drunk driving. DHS stated in response that many of these aliens were released as a discretionary matter after career law enforcement officers made a judgment regarding the priority of holding the individual, given ICE's resources and prioritizing for national security reasons. Isn't it true that ICE attorneys decide whether to offer bond and set the amount of the bond? So isn't it also true that the DHS could have detained most these criminal aliens, but simply chose not to?
Chairman, I myself would like a deeper understanding of this issue. I have your letter on the subject. We responded yesterday. I don't know whether you received the response yet, sir. But my understanding so far is that a number of those released in FY13 were as the result of an order from an immigration judge or by an immigration officer acting pursuant to consistent with Supreme Court precedent and other law. Certainly there's an amount of judgment that goes into that. So if someone's released, they're released pursuant to conditions that are intended to guarantee their return. But I look at the same list you've seen, and I've seen some pretty serious criminal convictions on that list, including homicide and other things. And so I want a deeper understanding of this issue myself to make sure that we're doing everything we should be doing to ensure public safety in this process.
And you note the homicides, for example. It was stated by the Department that mandatory releases, because of court decisions, account for 72% of those homicides. And obviously the Congress needs to address that. Some of those mandatory releases were because of being held for a length of time the courts felt were inappropriate, and we need to make sure that is addressed so that they are removed from the United States after they have served their sentences for homicide. But that still leaves 28% of the murderers a substantial number of people who the DHS simply voluntarily released. So I hope that you will look into what is happening there and try to help us understand how this can be fixed. Second issue I want to address is the issue of secure communities. It's been one of the most efficient mechanisms for removing dangerous aliens in the United States. Through secure communities, the fingerprints of everyone arrested and booked for a crime by local law enforcement are checked against FBI criminal history records and also checked against DHS immigration records. If fingerprints match DHS records, ICE can seek immigration holds against the aliens and launch removal proceedings. Former ICE Director John Morton has stated that, just to give you some sense of it, in very large jurisdictions in the United States, the rate of recidivism for criminal offenders can be as high as 50% or more. When ICE can come in and remove offenders from a given community so that they can't reoffend, well, guess what? We take that recidivism rate to zero. So, for example, if you have 100 criminal offenders, we're able to root them out. That is 50 crimes that will not happen over the next 3 years as a result of our enforcement efforts. Do you agree with former Director Morton as to the power of secure communities?
Well, I don't believe we should scrap secure communities. I believe, given the reality of where we are with this program in this country, that we need a fresh start. We have mayors and governors signing executive orders and passing laws that limit our ability to effectively carry out this program. And I think the goal of the program is a very worthy one that needs to continue. So, as part of the overall effort I'm embarked in right now, I want a fresh start to this program, and I want a fresh conversation with mayors and governors around the country to make this program work more effectively. We've got limitations being erected on our ability to conduct this program, and I think it's an important program, but it's gotten off to bad messaging, misunderstanding in state and local communities about exactly what it is. Some people think it's a surveillance program, but you're right. It's sharing fingerprints between one federal agency and another. And I think with clearer guidance and clearer understandings by mayors and governors, commissioners and sheriffs of what our priorities are, we can go a long way to improving the administration of this program, sir.
Well, not administrating the program is also a missed opportunity to address the problem with the release of criminal aliens back into our society, because when state and local law enforcement go to the trouble of identifying people and sharing that information and giving DHS more information about who should be removed, and then they don't see them removed, as is the case in 85% of the aliens identified through secured communities in 2013, not being deported, I think that builds a lot of mistrust in the system and will cause the system to fail of its own. So we encourage you to improve that system and to utilize it to a greater extent. My time's expired.